Well, a recently released video showing an American National Football League player punching his then fiancée and knocking her unconscious has led to widespread debate on domestic violence in the U.S. While domestic violence affects all segments of society, experts say immigrant women, especially those who are undocumented, are among the most vulnerable because their status discourages them from seeking help. Now, for more insight into domestic violence among African immigrants, I'm joined by Amelia Miseledis. She's director of the Person Center, a private non-profit organization that serves African immigrant survivors of violence and war trauma throughout the Washington, D.C. area. Welcome, I say, Miss M. Miseledis.
Thank you.
Very difficult name to pronounce. Anyway, how prevalent is domestic violence amongst African immigrants?
Domestic violence in the African immigrant community is highly prevalent. There isn't a great deal of documented data, particularly because when we are counted in the United States, we're counted as Black. And it doesn't show, it's difficult to tease out the actual numbers because it doesn't say which part of the world the Black person came from.
Mm-hmm. Now, one, I think, important thing someone may want to know is how different is the domestic violence among the African immigrants and Americans in the general population?
Migration in itself is a traumatic event for people. Migrating from being uprooted from one's homeland and coming to a new place. And domestic violence looks different in the immigrant community because there are several other things that come into it, and that there isn't adequate support system for immigrants to mediate. There are cultural issues that filter into it, legal, financial issues that come into domestic violence issues. The cultural issue is highly prevalent, particularly because there aren't any culturally appropriate approaches to resolving domestic violence or to provide support to the victims.
Now, at the top, I mentioned that one of the reasons why immigrants do not approach the authorities for help, it could be that they're undocumented, so they're concerned about their own status. But is that all, or there is much more than that?
There is much more than that. That's one of them. There are people who migrate here, and they may be married to an American when they migrate here. And there is that manipulation and threat of being deported to their homeland, being separated from their children. But above and beyond that, there are many other factors. One of it is economics. The rest of it, as I said earlier, is the lack of social support in the community, language barrier for people to go out and seek help, and the lack of culture-specific, culture-appropriate programs for African immigrants in particular.
Yeah. Now, in this kind of environment, how can you help somebody who is going through such terrible experiences?
For one thing, the person has to be ready because there is a lot of issues. There's a lot of comments about why don't they leave. The person has to be ready to receive help. You make yourself available to listen and be able to provide support. There are shelters in the area people can go to. There is legal support available. You can provide them with additional information as to what it is that, how it is that they will be able to access services. Mm-hmm. There are interpreter services available. The outreach has to go to the community-based organizations within the specific cultural group of African immigrants.
But would you say that in some cases actually it's a lose-lose situation, especially for a person who is undocumented? They're faced with deportation anyway, and they get concerned about that separation, which will hurt them as a family.
Some people are concerned about that, but there are laws here, and there is free legal service available to women who are victims of domestic violence to get advocacy in the courts, to gain residency within the United States if they were brought in with the promise of that, or if they are married to a person that's a citizen, and so forth. There is the issue of disrupting the family. That's the cultural piece that we were talking about. That does happen, but I don't know if it's a lose-lose situation, because it could be a win for the victim of domestic violence, because if she was going to speak out and get the services she deserves to get.
Okay, thank you. And next time we'll probably talk about male victims of violence also. But we don't have a lot of time today. Amelia, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yes.